Hello Internet, Cameron here, and I'm gonna show everyone my new toy, my rigid table saw. I bought this thing used. It is no longer made, and all the parts are actually no longer made either. And so when I went online, let's see, I was working on a project, and I'm cutting a lot of pieces to make some diffusers over here, some acoustic diffusers. And I decided to change my design halfway through, and ended up making a whole bunch of little tiny cuts. And what happens with the insert, the table insert right here, that is a really wide cut, and so there's a lot of gap between the blade and the table, and so all these things were falling down in there constantly and becoming a real pain. They'd catch on things on the inside, and I had to clean them out on a regular basis. That was kind of a pain. So I went online, bought myself one of these little inserts, and I thought I'd share. I didn't see any documentation about this being done on this particular table saw, or whether or not this particular one I bought on Amazon would in fact fit the rigid, my model, the rigid R4511 right there. It said on there, on the post, that it's supposed to fit the R4511 and the Craftsman, the ones that are listed here, but it was clearly designed for a different model. So I wanted to just document this to show everyone that this does in fact fit nicely. I did have to drill the holes here to mount it into the table, that one right there and these two right there. They were not there. It was very easy to drill. I just took the old plate and I mounted it underneath this plate, and then I drilled through this one into this one. And the reason for that, and the reason I didn't do it on top and drill down, is because if you get your angle wrong with your drill, the hole that's coming out on the bottom will be in a different position than the hole that's in the table that you're trying to match. So just make sure that you drill it from the right side and you try and get it straight. It's much easier if you have a drill press, but I don't. So I just got to make do, clamp it down, drill that hole. That worked out nicely. It also tells you in the instructions to adjust these little screws on the ends and on the sides so that it doesn't move around. And now I don't know about other table saws, but this particular one, since I'm screwing it down in there, this thing isn't moving anywhere. Now it's pretty secure. It's not going to move side to side. I don't know if that's the way it is on any other table saws, but if you're not actually mounting it in there and it just sits in there somehow, I would imagine that's a very important step. Make sure that thing doesn't move around, because if it does when that saw blade's coming through it, it'll kick it up out of there. Since I've got it screwed down and it's not going anywhere, I'm just going to move my rip fence over. I know that these measurements are pretty accurate. I'm going to leave 3/16 gap between where the saw blade is going to be coming out, so that it doesn't hit the rip fence. But just in case something goes wrong and it doesn't like it, it's not going to fly up at me. This thing is a pretty heavy duty rip fence. It's not going anywhere. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. All right, so I've already lowered the saw blade all the way down. Make sure that it is not scraping on the inside when you start it. What we're going to do is we're going to start the saw blade, and then we're going to use our adjustment down here to slowly raise the saw blade up through the insert, so we have a zero clearance. It's a perfect cut to the width of the blade. I do have a carbide tipped blade. Go really slow. Let's do 3/16 of an inch. There we go. Perfect. All right, turn on the saw. And I'm just going to come down here and loosen so it's not locked in place anymore. I'm just going to rotate this thing up so it comes out of the top. You should hear it in the fan. Nice and slow. All right, so I went ahead and raised it all the way up. Then I lowered it just a little bit and then killed the saw. Fence away here. And we can see that there is no gap. There is no gap there. That came out really nice. Now, if you're going to use this for any other angles, I guess the next thing you would do, I'm not going to, so I'm not going to do this, but I guess the next thing you would do is lower it all the way down, turn the angle a little bit, just a little bit each time, and do the same thing, raise it all the way up, raise it all the way down. And I would check on the inside and make sure that this cutout particularly had a nice cutout on the inside so that the blade would clear it with it all the way down. Make sure that when you start doing these other angles that it isn't going to be starting the saw blade with it in contact with the plate at all. But that's it. Worked out nicely. Thanks for watching. Alright, one additional thing that I forgot to add when I was explaining all the things that I did here. When I was talking about the screws in the sides to adjust to keep it from moving around, I'm not talking about the height adjustment screws that are right here. It came with a little hex key that allows you to raise or lower each corner. And what you want to do, you want to make sure that those are all level with the table so that your piece that you're cutting, if you set something on there, you shouldn't be able to see any light through there. Just get yourself a nice straight flat edge and make sure that all the sides are in fact flat. Because if you're ripping something through here and it catches on that backside, that's a really bad day when you got the saw blade going and you're halfway through and it stops. You don't want to go backwards, you don't want it to kick back. That's kind of a pain. It's kind of a weird situation to be in, so don't let that happen. Make sure that these are properly adjusted up and down before you tighten down this, and then check it again afterwards. And again, I didn't use the screws that are on the side here that extend outward to snug this up in the table insert slot. There's another one right back here in between. You're not going to be able to see it, but in between the side there, and when you unscrew it, it just comes out and it's supposed to snug it up. I didn't use those because they're very loose, and I felt like that's a very unsecure way to keep it snug. It's much better to secure it somehow like that. All right, thanks for watching.